1. As an editor at an engineering firm, my job was to check spelling and grammar, format documents, and check for consistency between cited references and the bibliography, etc. Big Client had their own formatting template, which required me to check multiple extra items for large documents, which were about as interesting to me as drying paint. One of these extra items was verifying the number of line breaks before every heading and subheading, a different number of line breaks for each heading level. Headings and subheadings were used to organize text into chapters, subchapters, sub-subchapters, and so forth. Reports for Big Client involved multiple authors, and none of them could be trusted not to alter the number of line breaks before a heading after I checked it. And so this story begins with the opposite of malicious compliance. I call it beneficent deviation. I programmed the headings and subheadings to include the appropriate amount of space automatically. While I was at it, I automated the amount of space between paragraphs. This saved the client money on me, I'm billable, and their own editors, who always double-checked my work. It was also ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act compliant, saved time, reduced risk of error in formatting, and removed an unnecessary step. Also, not having to count line breaks allowed me to focus on more important aspects of the document and deliver quality results. This system worked flawlessly for about a year, and I never got any complaints. Until the day I forgot to turn off track changes. While I always kept track changes on for editing, I typically turned it off when formatting to make the document less cluttered. Unfortunately, Big Client saw all those line breaks marked as removed.
Big Client noticed you took the line breaks out of their document, is that right?
Well, yeah. But the spacing is the same, I automated it.
What do you mean?
I mean, if you print one copy using the line breaks in their version and print one copy with the built-in spacing in my version, it will look exactly the same. There is literally no difference, except that it saves time and effort for people editing the document.
Oh, well, the client didn't understand that. They complained about the unnecessary rework you created, as they had to put hundreds of spaces back in the document.
Wait, they put them back in? Manually? Note if they had simply done a global search for a paragraph mark, quote, "P," end quote, and replaced it with, quote, "P," end quote. This could have been fixed in 10 seconds, which is how I removed the extra line breaks to begin with. Instead, someone went through the 300-plus page document, pressing the Enter key after every single paragraph, and counting out line breaks before headings and subheadings.
Yeah, they want you not to change their template anymore. Please be sure to use the one they provided.
Yeah, okay, if that's what they want. Cue malicious compliance. Since then, I have used Big Client's exact template. As Big Client keeps their template in a file system I don't have access to, I make my coworkers send me the latest and greatest every time before I start work, just in case anything has changed. It never does. And as a bit of petty revenge, I leave counting line breaks up to Big Client's editors, who seem to enjoy unnecessary work. I wish I could say there was a big payoff where one of Big Client's editors revolted, berated their higher-ups, and decided to adopt my template, but nothing like that happened. What I do know is that every hour an editor spends checking line breaks is money out of Big Client's pocketbook. Money they could have saved by letting me use my workaround to their stupid rule. And if Big Client is ever asked to go ADA compliant, that's a lot of line breaks they will need to manually delete. Sorry, this isn't one of those stories where the person who got complied with learns their lesson. Sadly, I was the one who had to learn. I never touched a client template again. As the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. 2. I had mentioned in my previous post, with the red bananas, that my prior office building was located right next to a grocery store that was a popular lunch destination due to the proximity of their variety of quick lunch options. I had also mentioned that I would often be first of my team to take lunch, and would often ask my team if they wanted me to pick up something while I was out. My colleague Daniel would frequently ask me to pick up bananas. This was another day at the office, and another planned trip to the supermarket next door for lunch. When I told my team I was heading out and asked if anyone wanted anything, Daniel gave me a slight variation of his frequent request.
1 banana? Just a small one?
He handed me $1 to buy the banana, which I handed back to him because I wasn't worried about buying something that would cost less than $1. I headed to the store, picked up my lunch, and headed over to the produce section and the giant banana display. This time, I spotted something at the corner of the display that was a little more frequently stocked than the red bananas. Mini bananas. And thus an idea was born. The mini bananas were sold by weight and the bunches were already bagged in plastic, so I couldn't just break one off from a bunch. They were about the same price per pound as the normal-sized counterparts, so I grabbed a bunch of the mini bananas and one regular but small banana that Daniel asked for, and went to check out. For the record, the bunch of mini bananas was roughly 50 cents. I walked back to the office, and while I was in the elevator heading to my department's floor, I opened the bag containing the mini bananas and broke one off the bunch. I got back to my desk, dropped my stuff off, and headed over to Daniel's desk with the single mini banana. I placed the tiny banana on his desk wordlessly and started to walk away. Immediately, Daniel starts laughing. He showed the person sitting behind him the single mini banana, which made her laugh too. I reminded him that he asked for just one small banana. Still laughing, Daniel proclaimed this tiny Cavendish to be awesome. I did bring him the normal banana he asked for after a few minutes of laughter. I told him I could only buy the minis by the bunch, and that he could have the rest if he wanted them, which he happily accepted. 3. The house we live in was built at the same time as hers. My parents were often at the construction site and help if they can. This strange lady was nice to us at the beginning, but that changed soon. This happened around Christmas 2017. We have a neighbor who is very unpopular in our neighborhood. She is well known for harassing people that use the public path at the side of her house. The path is 1 out of 3 to reach the public playground behind her house. If someone uses the path, she would scream at them that this is her path, on her private property, which is wrong. Sometimes she would close the path with a red and white plastic chain and won't let anyone use it. She would scream at kids on the playground when they were loud at daytime. She always has her shutters almost down so she can stalk the people on the street and stay unseen. If some kid's ball lands in her garden, she would bring it to the kids and destroy it with a knife right in front of them. All kids knew this and would run by her house if they wanted to go on the playground. When the neighbors' kids were playing in the winter outside in the snow, she would call the CPS equivalent in my country and tell them they were locked outside by their parents as a punishment. If someone walked by her house at night, she would often call the police due to a noise complaint. She was known by everyone in our neighborhood as the witch. But she hated my family in particular. We lived right beside her house. Our houses shared one wall. When me and my sister were young, we would use the swing in our garden or jump on our trampoline. She would regularly file noise complaints and often harass me and my sister when we were alone in our garden. If my parents heard her screaming swear words at us from the first floor of her house, they would yell back. If me or my sister walked on the path by her house, she would scream at us. We used the path daily on our way to school. One time when I came home from school, she was in her car with the trunk on the sidewalk. When I walked by her car, she howled the engine and the dark exhaust hit me. Almost every night she would hit the shared wall with something to wake us up. Sometimes she'd ring our door and try to make us go to the other neighbors to complain about small things. We often had lawsuits with her. One time because her trees grew 2 meters over the border, another time because she built a fence by sticking bamboo mats in the dirt and tearing it down the next day, and telling the police we destroyed her wooden fence. We won all lawsuits against her because my uncle, he's teaching law school, gave us good advice on how to deal with her and named lawyers he knew were good. She never paid the workers who repaired things at her house, and the electrical and water bills. When her old car broke down, she didn't pay the car mechanic and never got her car back. She was in debt and had a mortgage on her house. When the foreclosure came, we were at the court and bought her house. She was with us in the courtroom where the auction was, and tried to buy her own house but wasn't allowed, because she couldn't provide proof that she has enough money. We bought her house where she lived for 20+ years in front of her. We bought it because my parents were at the construction of her house, and knew the workers did a great job building it. We renovated it when she left. We repainted all the rooms, renewed the insulation, and put everywhere where there were no tiles a new wooden floor. My grandparents will be moving into her old house this fall. 4. This is a story about my older sister. My sister is a super kind and smart person. In high school, she was the typical nerd. Never really cared about her clothes, really, and stuck to her studies and extracurricular. Her general style was pulling her hair in a ponytail, jeans, shirt, and sweater or jacket. In her class, there was a group of popular girls that made it their life job to make my sister's life miserable. Think real-life Mean Girls, Regina George and all. Every time I talked to her about it, I could tell in her eyes it hurt her, but she just told me she was okay and she'll just keep ignoring them. One day, Regina and her minions spread a rumor about my sister being a slut, telling everyone she acts innocent but has actually slept with a bunch of guys and even hit on teachers. This rumor spread to all of the students and the staff. I texted my sister when I heard about it, and she told me she was fine, but when I saw her at home later that night, it was obvious she'd been crying. The school called my parents about the whole ordeal. The administration knew it was all BS, but still had to investigate since it involved teachers. My sister and even the administration knew who spread this kind of rumor, but there was no proof since it was all word of mouth. The teachers knew that this group of girls were not nice, but they never did anything this messed up before. My sister confronted Regina, and all she said was, "You're a loser, and losers deserve a crappy life. Deal with it." My sister went on to graduate as a class valedictorian, and went to Cambridge in the UK for her undergraduate, and graduated magna cum laude, or the equivalent of top of the class, and then went to Harvard Law. She worked for a few years at some big law firm, but eventually started her own practice back in the area we grew up in, with her now husband. One day she gets a mother and daughter into her office, and they ask about suing the landlord of the apartment complex the mother was living in. They said that the premises have not been upkept, have hazardous living conditions, and repairs are rarely done, and when they are done, they are not done well. For example, when a water pipe burst, the plumber didn't replace any of the old pipes, and instead just patched with adhesives like duct tape and Gorilla Tape, because to fully repair the ordeal would take a few days, so the management company just patched it up. My sister goes on to find out that the management company is owned none other than by Regina's family, and that the complex had been falling apart ever since Regina's father retired, and Regina decided to take over despite not knowing how to run the company. Over the course of a few months, my sister found out that it was not just this one complex, but 3 out of the 4 complexes the company managed were in terrible condition. And my sister's firm was able to get about 60% of the residents to file for a class action lawsuit. The list of things that were messed up in these places was astronomical. The fire sprinkler system didn't work. A huge backlog of repairs needed to be done in the apartments. Signs of mold were even sprouting in certain areas with more moisture, and rodent infestation. The only thing they didn't have were termites. On top of that, there were reports of multiple break-ins in the complexes as security contractors were no longer working for them. Everything was documented with pictures, police reports, and sworn witness statements from current and previous tenants. Contractors previously hired, previous employees, and expert witnesses. The case mounted against Regina's company was basically ironclad. My sister never forgot that rumor, and if there was ever an opportune moment to get back at Regina, it would be now. So my sister made it her mission to get anything and everything out of Regina for wronging these people. Initially, Regina's attorneys wanted to settle out of court, but since Regina was stubborn and also not too bright, she didn't want to settle and decided to fight back. As the defendant, Regina's claim was that all of the problems were caused by the plaintiffs, and that they were trying to fraud her. Case eventually went to trial, despite Regina's attorney wanting to settle out of court. On the first day in court, my sis was nervous about Regina recognizing her. However, it seemed like Regina didn't remember her at all. Throughout the trial, my sister's firm produced expert witness after expert witness about how the damage to the property was caused by negligence, and any repairs that were not done properly. Former employees testified about how Regina cut costs by reducing critical maintenance staff and expecting the leftover staff to take care of everything. When they couldn't keep up with the backlog, she fired the people and hired unqualified replacements. The only complex that was maintained well was the one she lived in, and she spared no expense to remodel her unit with new appliances and luxuries, and also had a bunch of her friends live there too, either discounted heavily or free. At the end of the trial, Regina was found guilty on all counts and ordered to fix everything or the companies will be shut down. The judge also ordered that no one was allowed to live there while the repairs were being made, so she had to pay for all the current tenants' relocation to hotels and repairs for an entire month. There were over 300 residents. The cost for everything would cost Regina over $2 million, assuming they don't find more things wrong and need to extend repairs. If she had just settled with the plaintiffs in the beginning, it would have cost her less than $500,000. Regina broke down outside of the courthouse and was screaming at her attorneys. When she caught sight of my sister, she ran over and started screaming obscenities at her. My sister put up a hand to quiet her and said to her face, "You're a loser, and losers deserve a crappy life. Deal with it," and walked away. As was witnessed by my sister's colleagues, Regina's face got bright red for a moment, and then the light bulb finally went off, as she realized who my sister is. The same nerd girl she bullied and has now destroyed her life. Aftermath. Regina's dad had zero idea of what was going on. After he retired, he moved out of the country to live abroad, and by the time he found out the company he built was falling apart, it was too late. He eventually came back to fire Regina and re-establish his company, and hired the right people to run the company. 5. In high school, I worked in the kitchen at a summer camp. We were not paid hourly, we were paid per meal we worked. One summer they got rid of the chef who'd been working there for decades, and hired a new guy, chef, who was a real piece of work. He was in his 60s, burned out on life, and had no love for the camp or the job. The former chef was in her 30s, high energy, and had worked at the camp since she was a kid. Her kitchen was immaculate because she took pride in her work environment and genuinely loved the camp and her job. The camp only hired the new guy because they wanted to branch out into year-round programs and knew she'd be unavailable since she had a long-standing winter job. Soon after the chef starts, the kitchen gets dirty real fast. He believes that cleaning the kitchen should be someone else's job, he's simply there to cook. The previous chef was there sun up to sundown, and in between lunch and dinner shifts. While we all had a few hours break, she was taking care of her kitchen, keeping it tidy and organized. Chef starts showing up a few hours before meals. And then, as soon as he's done cooking, he is out of there, leaving a staff of underage kids to deal with washing everything, putting stuff away, properly wrapping and labeling leftovers, cleaning up the fridge and pantry storage, etc. None of us have been trained on food safety, and we've never deep cleaned the kitchen, because the former chef preferred to do it herself. Camp owner notices the issue and offers to pay us an extra meal for someone to stay late and deep clean the kitchen once a day. So I take most of those shifts. Chef is told, but I don't think he pays much attention until... halfway through the season, another co-worker asked to split the kitchen cleaning duties with me one evening. I say, okay, but she proceeds to do nothing constructive, and just seems to be puttering around, wasting time. Deep cleaning the kitchen involves 5 distinct parts, so I finished 4 of 5, and I tell her that if she wants to get paid, she can do part 5, the only part left, which is both the easiest and fastest part. Otherwise I'll finish it myself and she can go home now, but she won't get paid. She seems to snap to it and starts part 5, so I leave for the day. I come in the next day for dinner shift and Chef starts unexpectedly yelling at me. Turns out he came back about an hour after I left to find my co-worker all by herself in the kitchen. I explain I left her to finish up what should have been a 5-minute job. I have no clue why she was still there an hour later, but why is that my issue? I'm not her boss, we're the same age. Who cares that I left her alone? I've been doing that job alone for months. Chef won't listen to my logic. He seems to think I was shirking my duties somehow. So to punish me, He makes up a new rule on the spot that,
"From now on, no one leaves the kitchen until everyone is finished. Everyone leaves at the same time, am I clear?"
He bellows that last part at me. I'm like, whatever you say, chef. So dinner starts normally. After all the diners have gone through the line for last call, chef starts removing his apron and heads for the door. I ask where he's going. He says home. He's forgotten his new rule. I start to follow him out and I yell to all my co-workers. Okay, hit the lights. I guess we gotta leave now since chef is leaving. Keep in mind, dining room is still full of kids, barely any plates have been washed, pots haven't been scrubbed, and no food has been put away. He stops and goes,
"No, I'm leaving. You guys stay."
I said, I thought you made it clear we are all supposed to leave together from now on. Isn't that the new rule? So he's pissed, but he comes back to the kitchen and stands there glaring at me while we continue working. About 45 minutes later, everyone is basically finished with the normal cleanup. Chef's wife and kids are waiting for him in the dining hall. They all live on camp property. And the kids are getting antsy, so Chef tried to leave again. That's when I reminded him about the deep clean that I still have to do. He blows up, starts swearing, calls me a few names. I calmly wait out his tirade, then say, "Hey man, you made the rule. If you want to admit it was stupid and a mistake, you can leave right now." Well, he decides not to give in. So I proceed to deep clean the kitchen just as slowly and thoroughly as I can. That kitchen has never been so damn clean. Because he's never deep cleaned the kitchen, he has no idea how long it's supposed to take, or how many parts are left. Just as I'm finishing the last part, he throws his hands in the air, says,
"You win, forget the rule."
And we all go home. Found out later my coworker I was accused of callously leaving in the kitchen by herself was just trying to avoid going to Bible study by making it seem she had to work late. Her mother was an overbearing, strict religious nut who went to the same church as Chef and his family. And when Chef caught her in the kitchen waiting for her mom to pick her up after Bible study, she lied so that he wouldn't tell her mom that she skipped it. 6. My company uses a website application to process the complex process flow of 2 of our product services. Example of complex. Steps A, D, F, J need to happen to move to the next stage, but B, F, J, P can move it too. Rather than developing our own process flow, we use WebServe, an online application that does a good job of handling our complex process flow. But a coworker brought to our attention an error when one of our clients complained of a problem. WebServe can pull reports on our product services that are in various stages of completion. The problem a coworker found was that during stages 4 to 5, a few fields are showing up blank on the report, but still appear on the website. It took us a while to figure out exactly what was going on, as often the product service was at a later stage when we discovered the error. I contacted our account manager at WebServe and informed him in detail of what the problem was, how we found it, what it was doing, with multiple screenshots of both the WebServe site and the generated report. I politely asked if he could have his dev team fix this bug, and when we could get an ETA as to inform our clients. Our WebServe account manager quickly replies back with, "I spoke to our IT team. Turns out these blank fields are from a different data table that no longer gets used when the next stage happens. This blank happens if that task doesn't have all the fields entered when completed. Our system maps a populated field onto WebServe, which is why you see a number there until stage 5 and on happens." I was puzzled. None of what he said made sense. I didn't ask for an explanation of what the problem was. I knew there was a problem because I told him about it. What I asked for is when WebServe would fix this bug. My polite reply went as followed. While I get that explanation, it was basically what I just told you in different words. My team doesn't understand this and our clients don't as well. If we see a field on the application, I should be able to see it on the report. So I was curious when we could get an ETA for a fix. The next reply by him was truly baffling. "The report pulls one-to-one data during the multiple stage process. It's just not possible to fix a report as there is nothing to fix. This is working as it was designed, as I was told by the dev team." I shook my head in disbelief. Okay. If that's the case, can you tell me why your dev team designed WebServe to display information at stage 4 and remove that very information for Stage 4 in the reports.
Because this is not currently possible to update for a one-to-one report. The WebServe app is only populating the previous data before it gets updated. It's not accurate, by the way.
Again, my head shook as I replied, okay. Wait, so either the issue is the Stage 4 process is not showing accurate information on WebServe and the report is, or vice versa. Either way, that's a bug, don't you agree? Sorry if we got off on the wrong foot, and I don't want to continue arguing semantics at this point. There is a bug on WebServe on either the app or the reporting process. Something that shouldn't be too difficult to fix. If field A is blank, use field B for the report. I know you do this for the WebServe in multiple areas, and do it for the reports for other fields. So what I'm asking is, please provide this same logic on the WebServe app as a reporting service.
This is not a bug, but I agree with you that it is not the ideal process due to the conflicting data. I'll tell you what, I'll submit an enhancement request to our dev team for them to review and prioritize as potential future release. At this time, I can't provide you with an ETA or completion timeline. I'll keep you posted for Q1 2020.
I figure at this point he's being defensive because he doesn't want to do work, is taking what I say personally for some unknown reason, or he's got personal issues he's dealing with and is taking it out in our conversation. I take my time and ask compliance to pull up our contract with WebServe. It takes a few days because this isn't a high priority, just a fun project for me. But I find the paragraph dealing directly with the service and how WebServe will take immediate action on bugs and viruses and system down issues. Bugs being the keyword I was looking for. I went online and quoted the part of the Webster's dictionary that pertained to us. An incorrect or unexpected result, or to behave in unintended ways. So I neatly prepared a PDF copy of that sheet in our contract, along with the penalty sheet. I attached it to the following email. Okay, we understand that your dev team needs to review said computer bug for errors and fixes. A future release is understandable, and getting back to us in Q1 of 2020 is just fine. We will just expect a zero balance bill on all invoices until such time as you can make this fix, seeing as the penalties would exceed our billable amount by day 15 of each month. Thank you for your time, and looking forward to hearing back from you in Q1 of next year. The emergency patch email arrived by the next morning, and the issue was fixed within 24 hours of me sending my reply. 7. I was working at a company that, despite being multinational, had a very small staff due to its nature, very specialized medical field. This, plus the constant staff absences from the office due to site and field trips, meant that everyone, at all degrees of seniority, came and went from the head office and mucked in and did whatever needed doing whenever they were there. Eventually, however, it came to the point of needing a dedicated office person for answering the phone, data entry, filing, etc. So the specialist could focus more on the medical work, and a girl was hired. I was away consulting on the site setup when she started, and this is what happened when I came back and met her. I got back in the morning and wasn't planning on working immediately after such a long trip. Instead, I was planning on, as I usually did on Wednesday when I was in the city, picking up my 5-year-old nephew from school and going to the park with him. We were going to drop off some papers and a case full of medical equipment at the office on the way. So I arrive at the office wearing jeans with a child in tow. This is fairly unremarkable. Our job schedule is non-standard, and to accommodate this, drop-ins at all hours in various states of sometimes casual dress are frequent. Hi, you must be Tiffany.
What do you want?
Just dropping off the equipment case and some paperwork. She doesn't bother to reply, just shrugs toward the back where the case goes. I put the papers on the edge of the desk in order to wrangle the case into its cupboard.
Don't put them there, they don't belong there.
Where would you like them?
Where would I like them? They're nothing to do with me, just get them out of my way.
I'm trying to remember she has no way of knowing who I am, or my role within the company. Actually, these need to be entered into the computer, so should I just hand them to you, or do you have an in tray?
How about you do your work and stop trying to slow it onto me? And that child shouldn't be here.
My nephew, who has been in the office many times, looks startled at this and a bit upset. I understand you were taking over in the office.
That's right, and as the manager, I need to tell you that in future, you need to dress appropriately and do the work you're given.
Trying real hard to muster up sympathy here. She's new, possibly hasn't realized the jeans and child aren't out of line for a quick drop-off. I summon a smile for a final attempt at making the encounter more pleasant. You know, I never finished introducing myself.
Don't touch anything! Just because your mother, she meant me, lets you get away with coming in here doesn't mean I'll put up with it. In fact, you can go stand outside.
My nephew is confused and distraught at this attack and bursts into tears. No, I don't give a damn if she's new. I've lost all sympathy, and the smile goes. No, I don't think so.
If you don't like it, you can take it up with the CEO. I'm a close personal friend as well as a manager here, and he's happy for me to run the office as I see fit.
Take it up with the CEO, she says. Malicious compliance time. I know he will be in shortly, so I decide to wait and do just that. Soon he comes in the door. My nephew sees him and yells, "Daddy!" Runs over and gets hugs.
Oh, great, you're back. Have you met Tiffany yet, Tiffany? This is Dr. Uras's Grass, my business partner and sister. I hope you've been treating her well.
He takes the papers off me and hands them to her. Then he looks closer at his son.
What's wrong, kiddo? Has someone not been nice to you?
We didn't fire her, she just didn't show up the next day. Don't know what happened to her after that. She never contacted us for a reference. Just a few more details for those who might want them. Everything after seeing Tiffany realized quite how deep a shithole she was in was a bit anticlimactic. Once my nephew had been reassured that he wasn't in trouble, he was over the whole encounter, and really just wanted to go to the park as promised. And I wasn't anxious to upset him again. So when his dad arrived, instead of the boy answering him about someone not being nice to him, I paraphrase since this is about 3.5 years ago, I simply said there had been a misunderstanding about nephew visiting the office, and that Tiffany, my brother and myself, needed to have a chat to clarify office policies, duties, and the like. She may have gone a little paler at this idea. I was deliberately underplaying things due to my nephew's presence and wanted to calm down myself a bit too. She knew that wasn't the end of it by a long shot. My brother knows me fairly well and could read between the lines that 1, something serious was up, and 2, I wanted nephew out of the line of fire before discussing it. So he suggested the 3 of us meet up first thing the next morning, and I chimed in as he had work to do in the office. He could lock up for Tiffany if she would just leave her keys. Him having work to do was fiction, and leaving her keys wasn't about him locking up, and getting them back to her when she comes in tomorrow was never going to happen, we all knew it. But she was out of options, and I was out of poops to give. I was prepared to meet with her, give her a chance to put her case, etc., document what happened, pay her whatever was owed, cross every I and dot every T. Though the outcome was certain, I wanted it all by the book because she wasn't going to even have any grounds to do anything but go away quietly. Or loudly, for all I cared. But she was going away promptly, comprehensively, and permanently. She didn't, however, bother to show up the next morning or tell us she wasn't going to, and that was the last we heard of her. She was only with us 2 weeks, and my brother says her work was okay. To be fair, she does seem to have been polite enough to the very few clients she had any contact with. Perhaps she didn't see them as office rivals. I think her behavior was about establishing an office pecking order, and that's why she was so aggressive and tried hard to inflate her position and importance, despite being so new. Wow, did she misjudge that? It would fit with comments from other staff who met her, some about being pushy and disrupting what was her work. I don't know why she paid out on me in particular, because I was the only woman. There was and is another, but she was on site and Tiffany didn't meet her. Because of the jeans and child. Maybe she really did just have a bad day and handled it unacceptably. Douche-level behavior. But if she'd been a polite douche during this one-sided pecking order contest, and apologized after, she might have had a second chance and survived her second week. 8. I work in a hot sauce store in a busy outlet mall. We're a well-liked, locally owned business and have many loyal return customers. But at this particular location, we also get a lot of tourists who are curious about our challenge items, or Hot Ones products. We have a large variety of samples available every day, literally like 100 hot sauces, 50 plus barbecue and wing sauces just out on the table, and we can pull another 50 plus bottles or so from the fridge if one's open. Every so often, we get people who come into the store and ask to try the hottest sauce. They love jalapenos in their burritos, and have eaten habaneros straight, and they're ready to enter the ring, swallow some sauce, and gain the admiration of a couple friends and bystanders at the cost of a stomachache. We usually try to guide them to the 10th hottest sauce in the store, burn them with it, and move on to something mild or medium suited to their taste. Today, while I was selling items to people who were actually paying for things, a 10 or so year old boy enters the store. I always get wary when children enter the store alone because it is full of glass bottles. They usually dart straight for the shelves and pick something up, but this child came barreling towards me like a bullet. While I make change for the couple buying some sauce, he calls out to me,
"Excuse me."
I ignore the interruption and continue my conversation with my customers. He parries it again 12 times or so back to back as I thank these people and get them out of the store. Finally, I turn to him. "How can I help you?" Where the fuck are this kid's parents?
"Mommy, can I try the hottest sauce in the store?"
Not this shit again. I am not dealing with this. Not with a 10-year-old kid. I explained to him that the hottest sauce on the table is Hellboy Right Hand of Doom. It's spiked with a 6.66 million Scoville extract, and probably, if you're not experienced with this kind of stuff more than just a tiny bit, can really mess up a good part of your day. Take my word for it. I explained to him that he has to be 19 years old to try it and sign a waiver, which is bull, but I'm off in 30 minutes, so fuck this kid. And instead guide him to a tasty fermented habanero that the kid coughs his eyes out on before explaining to me that he could handle the right hand of doom because his dad eats spicy peppers with him all the time. "Okay," I say, and he leaves, thank God. 15 minutes later, I'm interrupted by another customer, this time a gigantic woman in a blue blouse. She's set next to my sample table like a giant blueberry blocking up 20% of my floor space.
"Excuse me."
Apple doesn't fall far. The customers I'm with are polite and excuse me to speak to her.
"You didn't let my son try the sauce."
I explain to her that it has extract in it several hundred times hotter than anything he's ever eaten, and that it can cause him severe discomfort, and that I will not let him try it in my store. I explain that she is free to purchase the sauce and have him try it at home if she so wishes. She explains to me that she married a Mexican man, and that I wouldn't believe the things we ate in New Mexico City, where he grew up. When I ask what they had eaten there, she tells me,
"Things hotter than anything you have in this store."
At this point, her daughter interrupts the conversation. I shit you not.
"Excuse me."
What? I'm getting annoyed. I was annoyed from the second I saw the kid, and now he's back 20 minutes later with 3 of him.
"Why do you sell Valentina? It's not even a hot sauce."
Jesus Christ, aren't you from Mexico? It says salsa picante on the goddamn bottle. It's $5.50. I'm off at 6. I've had enough. How about this? You can try the sauce, and if it's as mild as you think, I'll let him try it. She agreed and grabbed her sample stick. I reached for the right hand of doom and unscrewed the cap. Its nuclear aroma sending memories of aches to my stomach. As she goes to dip the stick into the sauce, I warn her to only take a small amount. She grins at me and dips the stick all the way into the sauce. Trap card, bitch. She slaps it into her mouth. Immediately, she looks uneasy before she throws herself into pure agony. She is coughing, swinging her head back and forth, trying desperately to speak, but she cannot muster any words. She dropped her sample stick in all the chaos. After a solid few minutes of coughing and dry heaving, she manages a single word.
"Water."
I explained to her that water won't help her now. My relief walks through the door just in time to witness the finish. She tells me that the only reason she is coughing is because it went down the wrong pipe. She then immediately vomits into our garbage can. She apologizes for spitting up, like she didn't just rocket launch half a liter of chum into my trash can, and then leaves without saying anything else. I tossed out the trash with a smile on my face, and clocked out. 9. Many years ago, I worked closely with a celebrity on his TV show. It was a first season show. No one knew who he was when we shot it. But by the time season 1 had finished airing, he was on his way to fame and stardom. And by season 2, he was making big bucks. I worked very closely with him, and had a fairly significant job on his show. He could be difficult at times, but overall we got along well. And as we wrapped season 2, I let him and the rest of the crew know some exciting things. My wife and I were having our first child. Now let's back up a moment. For those of you who haven't had a child themselves, there's this shopping period before the baby is born, where you end up getting all this stuff you need. Crib, blankets, bottles, clothing, and a stroller or two. And while there are plenty of strollers in the $100 to $300 range, at that moment in history the hottest, fanciest stroller was clearly the Bugaboo. This thing was high-tech design, super versatile, lightweight, comfy for baby and parents alike, and it cost upwards of $800. My wife and I marveled at it in the store, and then bought the $200 model, because I'm neither rich nor stupid. With the stroller taken care of, we didn't bother adding another stroller to our registry, which is why it was so surprising when a package was delivered to our home. We opened it up, and there was our very own Bugaboo, the iPhone of strollers. I'm telling you, this thing was amazing. We had to watch a video to really learn how to put it together, but it was so much better than our cheapo stroller, and we were thrilled to have it. It was a gift from the celebrity. A very nice and very surprising gift. Because as rich as he was also on the cheap side. I mean, even years later he'd call everyone in for a production meeting, order pizzas for everyone, and collect cash from everyone there to split the cost. This is after he'd built his $10 million home. I'm not exaggerating. As many celebrities do, this guy had a personal assistant. It makes sense. Celebs can be legitimately busy all the time, and they need someone trusted to help with the day-to-day. Her name was Jennifer. Or maybe it wasn't. But I'm going to call her that because it's a common name. So even if it is her real name, which it totally is, it won't be a particularly useful clue to figuring out who the celebrity is. Lots of personal assistants out in the world, many of whom are named Jennifer. This Jennifer was great, very cool, and she was smart as hell and great at her job. And eventually she sold a project of her own and gave her notice. It was time for her to leave. By eventually, what I really mean is right as season 2 was wrapping up, and my wife and I were having our baby, and her celebrity boss told her to buy me the nicest stroller they make. He'd never had a kid, so he assumed it'd be maybe $200, and on any other day, when she saw the $800 price tag, she'd have wisely purchased a cheaper model for her cheaper boss. But she had nothing to lose. It was her last week of work. She'd already sold the other project. So she obeyed his request to the last penny, and bought us the nicest stroller you can get. He was pissed when he found out, but by then I'd assembled it and thanked him and, well, he yelled at Jen a bit, but she didn't care. And of course the celebrity never said a word to me, the damage was already done. That Bugaboo lasted for both my kids, and when our youngest had outgrown it, I made sure to extend the malicious compliance just a little bit further. I gave it to another former crew member who just had a baby of her own. Her name was also Jennifer. Or was it? His one overpriced gift that he never wanted to buy has done triple duty so far. Maybe one day it'll go to 4. 10. I started a brand new job at a resort somewhere USA. I look at the reviews, and they had some dire warnings. But I worked in some pretty wild places before, so I sign up prepared. I didn't expect to stay for long. I show up for work as a maintenance man. My new boss gives me a tour and a radio. He calls me on this radio. I call him back. I held the button for maybe 3 seconds before I started speaking. He didn't answer. So I called him again. Nothing. Well, later he confronts me and tells me that he hasn't heard me respond on the radio. So I tell him that I called. He told me to hold the button down for 1 second before speaking. From here on out, I knew this would be a long job. Later that day, he calls on the radio again, so I hold the button down for 1 second instead of the 3 I did before. Respond, and I hear this sound, shh, shh, like he just pushed the button down and lifted it without talking. I respond again. Again his radio sounds, shh, shh. We tag back and forth like this for 9 times. He was pissed, but I was already enjoying my first day. Every morning to date, for 4 months now, he gets on his radio and makes the shh, shh sound, like he isn't holding the button down on his radio long enough for his radio to pick up his voice. One of the maintenance guys usually calls on the radio. "Hey boss, were you calling me?" He'll respond, "Shh, shh." So I talk to the night shift worker who I'm supposed to replace. Well, he tells me that over the past 2 years, our beloved boss has bestowed the night position on one man, with increasing amounts of nightly, weekly, and monthly duties. Our dear boss also had the fortune of gifting increasing amounts of projects. Like have one man paint an entire fire truck with 2 coats of paint in one night. Maybe it would be possible to put 1 coat of paint on a fire truck if we didn't have 6 hours of regular duties on an 8-hour shift. However, our boss has some strange sense of time that no one can seem to figure out. So, of course, to compound the radio issue, we painted this truck in the noisy generator room to make it hard to hear the radio. Not that we know who he's calling for in the radio anyway. So then our boss got tired of seeing both of the night shift workers driving around in one golf cart. He told us that we need to split up our duties and drive 2 different golf carts. Now I know for a fact that when we do any regular duty X or project Y, when we both do it, our time gets cut in half. Even if I am fixing a leaky pipe, my partner can save a lot of time fetching parts and tools. I literally time the duties we do both together and apart with my watch, and I know we accomplish the same amount of work either way. So now we both drive 2 golf carts to the same places at the same times. We split fixing pipes into 2 duties, fixing and fetching. We split inspecting fire extinguishers into 2 parts. I look at the height off the ground to look for rust, and he will look to see if it's sealed and has the right pressure. In fact, every task that we do has been broken down such that we work together. Then our boss wanted us to break up our co-workers' parties in employee housing. He wanted us to take pictures of anyone partying at night. He wanted us to patrol the area and look for partiers every night. Now, if you don't know, this is a great way to anger your co-workers. Angry co-workers can make your life miserable at work. So we drive by, wave kindly at the 10 people drinking beer on the deck at 2 a.m., and we often chat with them. I usually turn to my co-worker in the second golf cart and ask him, "Hey, does this look like a party to you?" He usually says, "Nope." Then we move on. If we get a noise complaint, we kindly ask the partiers to take it to the employee recreation building. When we take pictures, we smudge some dirt on our cameras and take them from too far away to identify anyone. When our boss asks about the partiers at 2 a.m., we will say, "We didn't see them at midnight when we drove by." Anyway, our boss has dreamed up many ingenious ways of shooting himself in the foot, alienating and angering his co-workers, damaging his workers' reputations behind their backs, and much more. But these are just some of the ways his workers unite to maliciously comply. I suppose upper management doesn't want to get rid of him, because few people are willing to do this job. Our boss would love to leave, but no one will hire him elsewhere. He told me this last part directly. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Revenge is Ice Cream Archives, episode 15. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this podcast. Alrighty. Ooh, it's been a couple of weeks since the last one. I've just not been feeling myself. Very drained, not sleeping properly. But you're not here to hear me grumble. You're here to hear me sing. No, wait, no, that's not what we do here. Anyway, I'll have a bit of a ramble if that's okay before I go. A little while back, a couple of weeks back, maybe 3 weeks back, it's been a while now, my best knife, which isn't to say it was a good quality knife, it was just the best knife I had. The biggest, chunkiest one, so that's one I used to cut most things with, got stuck in a drawer. I didn't know that's what was doing the sticking at the time, otherwise I might have been a bit more careful, like shaking and pulling at the drawer to get it open, and eventually I got it open, and I'd been so vigorous in my loosening of the drawer that when I eventually got it open, the knife was bent, so it wasn't really useful as a knife anymore and barely adequate as a boomerang. So that got thrown out, which left me thinking, well, I've been wanting to get another knife set anyway, but I decided, you know what, I've had knife sets, let's not bother with that anymore, let's just buy individual knives as and when I need them, maybe pay a little bit more for them, but you're not buying them all at once, so it kind of works out over time. So I looked on Amazon and I started to get the suspicion that a lot of the ones on Amazon were resellers. So I took a chance, possibly a stupid chance, and I bought a good looking one from AliExpress. I've never bought anything from there before, and I've always wanted to at least try it to see what the process is like. And I've done that, and it was fine. So maybe I'll be lucky and I'll get a decent knife. If not, I'll get something off Amazon or I'll look in a local store. But it was a Japanese style, I think it's Nakiri, as this style is called. They're kind of like a rectangular one. So we'll see what happens with that. And I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.